Welcome, everybody, to the Celebrity Hour podcast, where we're talking with celebrities, filmmakers, actors, musicians, composers on the show about their films, their albums. I'm Bryan Kluger, and we have a very most excellent show today. We have a very awesome guest, a legendary intercontinental champion of film, camera work, editing, directing on the silver screen, all the way from New York, Harry Greenberger. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. As you could tell, there's a little bit of that pro wrestling coming out right now.
I didn't realize anyone knew about my wrestling background.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about your films. We're gonna talk about Staring at the Sun and your most recent amazing film, Hereafter.
I need you to listen to me. A truck hit your car.
What?
You're dead, Michael.
No, I can't be dead. I got stuff to do.
Unfortunately, you died single.
So?
Souls cross over in pairs.
Angelo!
Michael!
You have to find a soulmate.
You're dead!
Yeah.
You look great! This is fantastic! I'm so glad you're dead!
So I just ask dead girls on dates?
Sure, why not?
How do I find someone if I don't see anybody most of the time?
Come on, don't be dumb. Just squint really hard and you see whoever you want.
Sorry.
I met this girl. I really feel like she's the one, you know? She's everything.
Are you worried a new dead guy will show up and sweep me off my feet?
Yeah, little net looks flimsy. I don't even know why we haven't been whisked up into the sky or whatever happens.
For some reason, you don't match the criteria.
Yeah, we're not soulmates. Sorry.
What, do you think even the universe thinks you're too good for me?
Hey, watch it!
Well, because I'm alive and you're dead.
So what exactly happens if I don't find a soulmate?
You cease to exist, and the world goes on without you, as always.
How much time do we have?
It's like life. Nobody knows, and everybody gets a different amount.
Oh! I mean, why can you hear me? Why can you see me? Why do you understand this?
I've just been seeing this stuff a lot lately.
Normally, it's not possible to bond with someone who's on the other side of the line, but she's close.
What does that mean?
It means she's going to die soon.
So I have to let something terrible happen so I can hope that it means we work out for each other? I mean, she still has her whole life. Can't let her die.
This isn't going to work out for you the way you want it to. You can't change destiny.
Michael, this is my friend Faith, and Faith, this is my newly deceased friend Michael.
I am missing Pilates for this.
Amongst other things, but first, like in the movie Sound of Music, we have to start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. So, Harry, tell me where it all began with you in film. Was it something when you were young and you saw on the movie? Was it like when, Han shot first at the theater in Star Wars? Where did it all begin for you in film?
Well, you called it with your first guess that I loved movies as a little kid and went to all like the sort of the weird Disney things and Apple Dumpling Gang and all that, but just loved it the way every kid did, Willy Wonka, that kind of stuff. But then Star Wars was like a lightning bolt out of the sky for me. I was 9 years old, 1977, that moment when Star Wars first comes out. It was unprecedented. There was no internet, but everybody was talking about it. It was viral before there was such a thing. And I couldn't get my parents to let me go at first, but I was just enraptured with the Greg Hildebrandt poster that was hanging outside the theater. And I was like, whatever. I'd gotten into Star Trek, of course, at that point, but I just wasn't prepared for what Star Wars turned out to be. And that moment when the Star Destroyer comes over the camera at the beginning of the movie, I forgot I was in a movie theater for the next 2 hours. And after it, I remember asking my parents, like, where did that come from? Who did that? Who made that? And they said, some guy named George Lucas. And it was like, I think they said he was the producer, because they didn't, like many people, they didn't know the difference between producer and director at that point. And it became like a life's mission to find out, like, who is it that made that happen, and I want to do that. And then my dad showed me 2001 on cable, like 3 years later. he said, well, I know you like Star Wars. This is a masterpiece. And so, Star Wars made me want to make movies. 2001 made me want to make films. And I love sort of both worlds, the fun fantasy, so-called lowbrow, and the, so-called highbrow. I love everything in between and everything below and above those. And just always wanted to be a part of making movies, telling stories.
That's excellent. And oh my, 9 years old at Star Wars, 2 years later, 11 years old, something like Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey, mind blown.
Absolutely. Yeah. Credit to my dad for thinking that I would even grasp 2001 at that point. And I'm sure I didn't, but it was enough to blow my mind, certainly,
Right. Now, after Star Wars, did you or your dad ever purchase or get access to one of those old video cameras that you put on the shoulder, made home videos? And if so, what camcorder was it? What little movies did you make? Do you remember that?
I do. I made a lot of stuff. My dad was always into technology and was an early adopter of whatever came along. He bought like the very earliest video game system that had like a Pong thing on it. And he bought a home video system before most people. We got cable before most people. He always just wanted to have the newest thing right at the cutting edge. Sometimes it meant we got the version that didn't wind up sticking, like, beta, that kind of thing.
Go beta.
But so yeah, he had a video camera and he let me use it. And when he saw how much of an obsession it was, they bought me a little JVC camera. And after using his for years, eventually they bought me it's the very one that Michael J. Fox's character is using in Back to the Future. The exact same camcorder. And I had a lot of fun making that. And my friend Glenn and I just started making absolutely silly, intentionally stupid little movies, The Cardboard Killer, and made little parodies of Rocky. And we saw the scene in Cat People where Malcolm McDowell slurps up a piece of flesh from something he's killed, and we sat there with a video camera trying to imitate that with a fruit roll up, because a red fruit roll up, and started trying to do effects and came up with our own, like, we had an idea of we bought a Tom Savini book about how to do special effect makeup, and we got a syringe full of fake blood we made, and had the idea that it would look like a gunshot if we just hit the plunger on it, aimed at someone's chest, and it would spray out, not realizing that it would spray all over the walls of the room we were in. So yeah, it got really experimental, and we have a bunch of little old VHS movies that we made together.
Nice. And hopefully you still have those?
I do. They're not good, but they're a lot of fun. We also like doing stunts. So there's a lot of video of us like doing a stunt, like forward roll down a staircase, and jumping on and off cars, that kind of thing.
But these are the types of things that go on the bonus features of a Criterion release.
I would love that. I would love that. That's got to be fun for any director that's lucky enough to have that, to be able to like go into your little treasure trove and share that stuff.
Right. So from there, you're growing up, you go to high school, and eventually Ithaca University. Did that film passion, that film love, desire to make movies continue through high school, or was that when you started to like play music, write music, paint, sculpt, stories, and all that?
I was doing all of that, but I was lucky enough that I had such a big high school. They had a filmmaking class in my high school, and actually, funnily enough, those little real awards that are visible right there on my shelf, I won 5 of them for my little high school film, which was terrible. But it was the best, I guess, in that class. So I was probably the only one in that class that had like, huge delusions of grandeur and was trying to make an epic in high school, and everyone else was trying to get like, an elective grade out of it. And so I was gunning for those little awards, those little plastic spray painted reels back there. And I made like a little film there, and then I went off to Ithaca College, and the only thing I was interested in was making films. So my folks were kind enough and helped me find a college that had a film degree, And I thought I'd go to NYU, but they were right in thinking at that point that I was not necessarily ready to move from Butler, Pennsylvania to New York City at like 17 or 18. And so I went to Ithaca College, and I was lucky. I met a lot of great people, including my editor who edited both of my features, Sarah Corrigan, brilliant editor. We went to Ithaca College together. We edited in the same room there and sort of bonded over our ideas about editing, and had some great professors who were really influential in my thinking and my approach to it. Like Dr. Patty Zimmerman was a great, as she's still a professor there at Ithaca. We're still friends, and she's just a terrific mind about film.
Now, going through high school with the film class and at Ithaca and studying film, I think teachers are really the key to success. Was there a certain piece of advice you got from one of your professors or teachers that still sticks with you to this day, that really inspired you to like, yes, I'm here making this movie right now because I hear this still in my ear?
I was lucky, and I had great teachers who were inspiring, but it's funny, the thing that comes to mind is the one, I had a guidance counselor who tried to advise me against it, wasn't hearing it, and just said, it's funny in retrospect. He said, you don't want to, he said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to make movies. I want to direct films. And he said, you don't want to do that. Hollywood is all homosexuals and perverts. How about that? And drug users. And I was just I lived in a very small town, and his sort of shockingly bad advice still rings in my head. That it's funny that at the time I just remember thinking, what's wrong with that? And but it was, I still think about the fact that that kind of advice could have sent someone away from it if they were hearing it from the wrong perspective, and if they believed that was a terrible thing about Hollywood. And so I heard him say that, and I just remember hearing him say that sort of redoubled my commitment to film, just thinking, that sort of thing people talk about, it wanting to prove them wrong. But definitely, just any English teacher that fills you with a love of literature or storytelling. Had that in high school, and was lucky enough in college that, I got there and I thought that I thought everyone was going to be coming at it from an artistic point of view. And I kind of wasn't ready for being drilled on all the technical things, which didn't interest me as much as the writing and the directing, but, you have to learn it. And so, having someone sort of stop me in my tracks on arrival in college and kind of say, you're going to have to learn the basics. You're going to have to learn all these film fundamentals, starting with, how a piece of film is made and that kind of stuff, and how production is done and how lighting works and all the stuff that I came into Ithaca College thinking I knew everything, and I left there very sure that I still had a lot to learn, and that was a valuable thing. And learned a lot of film theory there, but I was lucky and got an internship between my freshman and sophomore year, working for a company in Pittsburgh near where I lived, working as a PA on TV commercials, and then jumped from that into being a grip, and jumped from that into being a camera assistant on those, and then jumped from that into working on movies in Pittsburgh for years and years. And so I was lucky that I got the sort of grounding in film theory from Ithaca College, and then got a strong education from being, as a camera assistant, you're right next to the director and you're right in front of the actors. And as long as you're concentrating and doing your job and pulling focus and maintaining the camera, it's actually an amazing film school, because you're hearing the director talk to the actors and talk to the cameraman and talk about the lighting and the angle, and you're learning how and why to move the camera. And I accidentally backed into a tremendous opportunity. Yeah.
That's great. That's
camera
great.
was the right place to be.
No, that's awesome. That kind of, I feel like, echoes my story too. In my freshman to sophomore year in college at University of Kansas, I was a PA on a film called Slapper, She's French. And it was, I got that, and then, it just kind of led to more things going down the road. And I like how you said like, you know, you learn film theory and maybe the basics at school, but actually diving into that deep end and being right next to the director, the actors, and just hearing the conversations, that's, I mean, that's a priceless education right there. And so you're doing that PA work. And is it true? Because you mentioned Tom Savini earlier, who's like, you know, a man god of makeup and visual effects and movies. Tom Savini, aka Sex Machine. Did you work in some form of capacity on his version of Night of the Living Dead from 1990?
I did. I actually worked with Tom Savini 3 different times over the years, but on that, I hate to, this will be disappointing. All I did on the Night of the Living Dead remake was I drove an equipment truck. I was absolutely at that point willing to do absolutely anything to be on a film set. And I got to be there and watch some stuff get shot, but I was one of the low men on the totem pole on that. But then I got to work with him on, well, I was there while they were shooting Monkey Shine's George Romero movie.
Yes.
I was doing commercials in the same building. I wasn't actually on that film, but I was working, and he was so kind, and Greg Nicotero and his team that were working with him were also kind. They let me come in and watch them doing their work. And even I do a lot of, even at that time, I did a lot of little sculptings, and I wanted to see if there was any way I could get a job as a sculptor. So to their credit, they were kind enough. They let me and my friend, we drove down from Butler, Pennsylvania to Pittsburgh with a whole little tray each of our sculptures that we did. And they said, these are really good. This is nice work. You should pursue this. But, you know, we're kind of at the point where we got all the sculptors we need on this. They were very nice. We were, you know, 17, 18, whatever. But extremely nice guys. And then I worked on a movie that nobody remembers. It was a Backstreet Justice, and Tom Savini did a bunch of gunshot effects in that. And so I worked with him. I got to watch him work on set in that. And again, a very nice guy and very pro. It was a good cast of, like, you know, Hector Elizondo and Paul Sorvino and Linda Kozlowski and some other good people. But for me, the attraction was watching Savini at work, just doing, you know, doing squibs and other gore stuff. And,
oh yeah, that's the dream. And then, you know, doing work and growing up in Pennsylvania, you're in you're in the zombie maestro's backyard. So that's cool.
Sure.
You actually got to kind of be with him or work with him a little bit. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got to know Romero a little bit on Monkey Shines. I wasn't working on it, like I said. We were shooting commercials in the same building, but it's not a very big building. So I'd go from Studio A over to Studio B, and I got to watch Romero do a casting session for a movie that didn't happen till later, and just got to know him. He was a big, kind teddy bear of a man. It's like, it's funny, those movies make you think he's going to be scary or creepy or something, and he was just a very kindly guy, very nice. And I don't know if you ever saw Monkey Shines, but
yes,
yeah, I
own that Scream Factory for sure.
Yeah, I got to play with those monkeys. I guess, you know, the actual capuchin monkeys I had on set. I got to, you know, have a story that may not translate on air, but I can, if
yeah, let's do it.
All right, you don't have to use this if you don't want it. To me, it was very funny. I was young and I'm on a film set. It's one of the first movies I've ever been on the set of, and you know, like anyone at that age, you're trying to meet everybody and make every opportunity. And there was a young woman who was the monkey wrangler on the shoot, and she said, she had her little sort of safari outfit on, and she was, she said, you should, you can come down and see the monkeys if you want. So I came down to the little monkey room, and she she started saying, like, well, do you want to see what they could do? She started demonstrating, and they were, in the movie, they're helper monkeys that are doing things for paralyzed people and people with other disabilities. And so the monkey, she was showing me, it would be like, if the monkey's name was like Skippy or something, I forget the monkey. She was like, Skippy, like, oh, turn on the light. And he'd run over, turn on the light. He's now turn off the light. He'd run over, turn off the light. And he'd say, now bring me a drink. Skippy run over to the refrigerator, come back, psst, pop it and hand it to her. Like, it was amazing. And I just like, and I'm joking with her about like, well, this is, they're taking over. What are we gonna do? The monkeys are, and it's like they had to tie a knot and untie a knot. All this stuff is going on. She's describing the program to me. And she's like, are you comfortable? He likes to jump up on people. And so I said, sure. I'm pretending to be comfortable. I'm not at all comfortable with a monkey on me. And the monkey jumps up on my shoulder and it's crawling around. I already had long hair that long ago. And the monkey's like swinging around on my hair, like, like on vines, jumping from shoulder to shoulder. And I'm just trying to concentrate on talking to her and act like I'm totally cool with this. And while I'm not paying attention, I feel the monkey parting my hair and playing. And then and while I'm talking to her, it all sort of goes in slow motion in my mind. And I see her go, like, oh no. And then I look over and I see the monkey kind of like adjusting himself and like aiming himself. And then I see like a little wiggling monkey and she yanks him off my head right as I was about to get, violated in the ear by a monkey and there's no keeping your dignity after that. So I just, I made my goodbyes.
You should just, oh my goodness, it's like monkeys love me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know why, I'm just apparently so attractive, but like, I'll never forget, like, I just, I could see him in my mind still like kind of swiveling his hips, adjusting, getting ready. And like that delay was all I needed to avoid the terrible.
I feel like this is an amazing short film in the making with like that slow motion shot of the person looking at you like.
I remember it to this day, her just grabbing him off my shoulder really fast, like you would, a dog that was about to do something bad.
And after that, you were still, I'm going to be a part of movies, but no monkeys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's good. That's good. And is it also true, before we get into your new film Hereafter, you worked with Kevin Smith on Dogma as well as Jack Ketchum on Girl Next Door, which I actually own that movie and I love it.
Oh yeah. It's funny. Well, Jack Ketchum, he didn't direct it. So I think was it Greg? Trying to remember the name.
Oh yeah, yes, you're right.
Yeah, but I never actually met Jack Ketchum, but I know he was around on set, I believe. But like I did work on Girl Next Door. My friend Bill Miller, I believe, did the script adaptation, and my friend Andrew Vanden Houten produced it. And I keep thinking, I'm blanking his last name, Greg something. A very lovely fella.
Right. And for those of you who are listening, this is not the Girl Next Door about the family kind of friendly porn thing that happened in high school. No, this is completely different, not family friendly at all, but it's amazing.
Yeah, it was a very shocking film and they had some trouble. I know New Jersey wanted to shut down the shoot, and they went to great lengths just to make sure they were allowed to even make the film, because it was dealing with a very shocking criminal case.
Yes.
And but yeah, it's a very disturbing and potent and alarming piece of horror film work. And yeah, I did work on that, and I worked on Dogma. They shot some of it in New Jersey and some of it in Pittsburgh. I worked on all the Pittsburgh stuff, and it was a lot of fun. Got to work with an amazing group of people, Salma Hayek and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon before they were that well known, and obviously Silent Bob and Jay.
Yeah.
And,
no, that's great. You're building up your resume. You're working with some great talent, and that led you into, I guess, Staring at the Sun, which is award-winning. This film that you made, and then after that, or before that, right? You developed the story for Hereafter, which is coming out.
Yeah. It's true. I wrote the script for Hereafter long before what wound up being my first film. I think I wrote the script around 2011, and we started into a process of making the film, and a whole bunch of, as it happens in film, a whole bunch of scheduling problems and just the complexities of the industry made it so it was on hold for over a year. I kept waiting. We were ready to do it. We had a great cast at the time, and a lot of great resources in place. And then the delay made me think, well, I'm going to make a smaller film in the meantime, because I was itching to get a film off the ground at that point. And I had done a bunch of music videos, and I just felt like I was ready to make a feature film. So I finished a script that I had from earlier that had been laying around unfinished, and made Staring at the Sun from there. And then luckily, when Staring at the Sun started winning some awards, it became easier to get what became Hereafter together. And we got lucky.
And that's how that happened. So with Hereafter, which was formerly called Faraway Eyes, right?
Faraway Eyes.
Faraway Eyes, yes, right in the back. And it became Hereafter. It's this concept is so incredible to me, because I think it's kind of universal in every human to think about what happens after death.
Yeah.
And I think this is such a sweet and darkly funny and sci-fi fantasy element to what happens after you might die. And is that where you came from? Was there like any like research or a story you read that like, oh, I read this, I can maybe make a story about this? Or how did that concept come up for Hereafter?
What happened was, it's funny. I had a breakup with a girl, kind of like in the beginning of the film, not exactly like that, but I had a breakup where I had to drive home from the breakup. And as I drove home from the breakup, I had a moment on the highway where I kind of thought, like, well, I wasn't paying attention. I could have been, if I got killed right now, I'd have been killed like right after a breakup, right when my heart's broken. And I started extrapolating from there, just thinking like, well, it's funny how the moment when you've had your heart broken is where your friends and your family start going, well, you got to get back out there, man. You got to find someone. And I thought it's funny that the pressure is at its highest right when your heart's too messed up to be the right person to be doing that anyway. You're actually not equipped for it. And so then I started thinking, well, how do I make the stakes higher, and how do I make it so so there's kind of a gun to the character's head of like, you have to do this right now, even though your heart is messed up. And that's when I started. I was also thinking about how if you break up after a long relationship, you're older than the last time you were trying to date. You start going back to the same places out of habit, and you feel invisible there. You feel like, wow, this scene has moved on without me, and I'm older, so this cool bar I used to hang out in, these aren't my people anymore. They're not.
I'm the old person at the bar
right
now.
Exactly. And I felt like, well, you're a ghost at that point. And it started from a place of pretty abject loneliness, and trying to be satirical about that, and the fact that the minute, especially when you're newly broken up with, the world starts looking like, well, concert seats are in pairs, restaurants are designed for 2s or 4s or 6s, and it really felt like the world is cruelly designed when your heart is broken, or if you're single for a long time, which I was for a long time. The world felt like it was designed in pairs, and I was sort of trying to make fun of how hurtful that can feel. And it's funny, right now the trailer has made people online get really pissed off at me, thinking that I made a single shaming movie. And it's like, no, this was written by a very lonely guy I was trying, and I my joke I've had since then is, that's like saying Planet of the Apes is saying that the world should be run by apes. This was the predicament I was putting the character in, was feeling painfully single. And this is not a single shaming movie. It's sort of a movie about how hard it is to feel like you can find love that's meaningful and reciprocated, and how hard the world can seem to work to beat that out of you. And also, like I said, how difficult that can be when your heart is newly broken, to feel like you can find something that's meaningful, because also you yourself aren't generally that qualified to be that person for someone else in that moment. And I wanted that to be the character's journey, was to find out, well, what would it take, not just to find love, but to be worthy of of it when you've had your heart all twisted up.
Right. And it's a fantastic story, and the cast you assembled is just amazing. Everybody from like Jackie Cruz to Andy Carl
Mm-hmm.
to Alyssa Middleton and
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hurt and Florencia Lozano, and of course Michael Rispoli and Christina Ricci. I mean, that's kind of like an all-star cast of characters right there. Like,
I agree. We got very, very lucky.
talk
And
to me about coming together and like sending scripts out, and just I gotta imagine being an actor and receiving a script like this. It's just like, wow, just say yes, I don't care.
I hope it felt like that to them. And we also, to add, Nora Arnezeder is in it from Army of the Dead, a brilliant French actress. She's terrific, and also Nikki James, who won a Tony for Book of Mormon, and Jeannie Berlin, who was an Oscar nominee. We got incredibly lucky with the cast, and a lot of it, of course, is thanks to Lois Drapkin, who's our amazing casting director. She did my first film as well. But we're sending, you do it through agents basically, and so you start to just kind of hear back who's interested or who might be interested, and it was honestly a thrilling process because one never knows whether the person might be, I'm not used to it, so I didn't know whether when people said they loved the script, whether that was genuine or the way the industry works. But the people we worked with were very convincing that they connected to it, because you wind up on set directing them, and people seem to be pretty connected to the material and the characters, and having Christina Ricci want to do it, having Andy Carl want to do it. I wasn't familiar with him until my casting director had suggested him, and I felt like that's obviously the crucial role in the movie. You got to find the right person to play that character, and my casting director knew him, and my producer knew him from Law and Order, and more wise than I was, they took me to see him on Broadway in Groundhog Day, and he was amazing in it. And we met with him in the dressing room afterwards, and he'd read the script, and I was very complimentary about the musical that he was in just now, and he was extremely complimentary about the script and very excited to wanted to do it. And he had a lot of insight into it and had connected to it pretty deeply, and it just seemed pretty obvious that he was the right person for it. And he's great at the comedy, he's great at the drama aspects of it, and he's great at sort of making those transitions even from moment to moment. Some scenes go from comedy to drama very quickly, or vice versa, and he's terrific at those little subtle transitions and making them feel like they come from within. And an incredibly nice guy. Actually, everyone, not a person on this film, there's not a single person on this film in the cast or behind the camera that was just not we got lucky. It was, they say like there's a no assholes policy on sets, and we got lucky. We had just terrific and kind people from top to bottom. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. And explain or talk about that dynamic from the writing process to actually shooting on location or on set. The perfect balance you made in your story with the comedic aspect and the very serious and dramatic aspect of this movie, because there's a little bit of both. Because I imagine when you're writing, you're like, oh, this is going to be a good joke, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, that killed, or no, we got to leave that out. But writing a darkly funny movie such as this, I don't know if you just comes natural to you, or if it's something you have to go back and forth with.
With deciding how to sort of balance those two extremes that happen in it. Yeah, well,
yes.
I knew from the beginning of the writing that I could feel that it was going to be like a lot of tonal shifts in it, just all over the place, because I knew where I wanted to go with it. And so I kept thinking, definitely, I'm glad I had made the other film first, because I felt like a lesson I learned from that is that you could be on set and something is hysterically funny that you've discovered on set, but you have to keep in mind the whole jigsaw puzzle that it's part of. And, you know, we had something really hilarious happen on the set of Staring at the Sun, and there was no way to use it because that scene could not dare be funny because of what comes before it and what comes after it and what needs to happen. So I went into shooting Hereafter constantly reminding myself, like, watch the tone, know where the tonal shifts are going to be, and remember, you know, sort of always be thinking about what scene you're coming from and what scene you're heading to, where that character's got to be when he walks into the next scene. And you know, Andy's instincts are funny. He's a hilarious guy, but he also, you know, we would sit and talk about it, and he'd you know, he would know sort of how much he should unleash his inner musical comedy essential nature. And it was fun those times when I could just say to him, like, this is a scene where you can just let that go. And there's a few moments of that. And then but yeah, it's a tough tightrope walk to do at times, because, you know, but I think scenes, even the most dramatic scenes, usually need some humor to temper them, to make it so the audience wants to be with you through that. And I think sometimes, you know, humor can make it so the audience lets down their guard a little for the drama to sneak in after that. Like, if they've just laughed with you, they've opened themselves up to you a little. They feel comfortable. They feel like they're in the, you know, they're in the hands of someone. But like, in other words, if you were to just have nothing but, you know, there's exceptions, because like there's nowhere to squeeze humor into Schindler's List or something, but like there is. I
wrote about that once.
Oh, you mean that there is humor in there? But yeah,
correct. Yeah, I think I wrote about the funniest moments in Spielberg movies, which he's not synonymous with like comedy,
right?
But like one of them was Schindler's List, and it was it was the moment, I guess, where they're hiring for like a typewriter,
mm-hmm.
and he only has to hire one, but I guess it's like a pretty girl, but everybody else doesn't look well, so he hires everybody,
mm-hmm.
you know, at once. And like, in such a very painful movie to watch,
right.
There was like that little comedic gold there, or
mm-hmm.
even, you know, Saving Private Ryan or something like that, where they get the wrong Private Ryan, which is genius,
right
funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like that you can go for that extreme back and forth so well, like that, and I think it's earned in Hereafter.
Thank you. That means the world to me to hear, because that was the biggest worry, was that you know, that you can lean a little too much in one direction and sort of lose the ability to seesaw back to the other, or at least so quickly. And
right.
I forgot about the moment of levity in Schindler's List. So that's a good example. But like that, and I think they probably thought long and hard about, like, well, do we dare? Do we have or do we need it? You know, do we need to have a moment of levity here to let the audience breathe? You know, like, I always think about the way the scene in Reservoir Dogs with ear cutting. One of the ways it works is there's constant humor that lets the audience think they're about to be let off the hook, that it's not going to be horrific, and
right.
Then
he turns it into a musical.
yeah, exactly. And in doing so, I think that's what makes it so brutally effective in the long run, is he's tricked the audience into letting down their guard. Mm-hmm. And repeatedly, like when Mr. Blonde leaves, I felt our whole audience, when I saw Reservoir Dogs, I felt the whole audience sort of breathe a sigh of relief when Mr. Blonde leaves the room for a minute, thinking, oh, there's going to be, you know, we're not going to see what I was worried we were about to see. And then you find out he's leaving just to get something to make it worse. And I always thought that's a little masterful bit of audience manipulation on Tarantino's part, trying to make it so, you know, over and over you think you're being let off the hook as an audience and you're not going to watch something terrifying. And then in the end, when he does it, I think the audience has dropped their guard. And,
yes. Oh, what a great scene. It's good. Is there anything that you got to do on Hereafter with the camera that you've always wanted to do, that you haven't yet until hereafter? That you're like, oh man, I got to put this in a movie. I saw this when I was little. I got to use this camera technique, or I got to do this in the movie.
That's an interesting question. I have to think through the film. Well, we got to deal with a lot of effects, which obviously as like a Star Wars 9-year-old, that was fun to deal with. Although obviously it's not maybe as much fun on set as it sounds like, because it's a lot of technical stuff and a lot of standing back and letting the people who know what they're doing take care of that stuff with very exacting measurements and things like that.
Right.
But there were a lot of things where, like the little moment on the trapeze. Just I always love things where you just let a moment of grace sort of happen on screen, just a little poetic moment of grace. And so cutting from the shot of the person on the trapeze to looking below and just sort of letting the music carry that image, that's the kind of thing I've always loved doing, and I got to get that in there. And let's see what else. Just I'm a lover of sort of letting a Steadicam follow somebody through an entire situation to the point where you can kind of let the backwards tracking motion and then forwards tracking motion sort of make the audience forget, hopefully, that there's a behind the camera and in front of the camera, and make them just believe that we're with those characters in that physical space. And even just doing that in Times Square and doing that throughout the apartment that they wind up in, that kind of stuff really, just sort of letting the camera tell the story, letting moments happen where where, like the moment with the where Nora has the 2 bottles, just sort of letting the camera tell you the story of what's going on between those 2 characters, letting the conflict shift to a moment of togetherness based on just the way they're looking at each other, and the way you just watch, his expression change and her expression change, getting to do that kind of thing. No, so not really as much camera trickery or any like sort of, camera acrobatics, but I got to do an awful lot of, it's all fun. It's fun to be, it's a gift to be allowed to be directing a movie. And it's it's the kind of thing you pinch yourself while you're doing, even if it's the worst day of the shoot. We had some really weird days where things go wrong that you can never predict. And but even on those days, it's still, it's a privilege to be doing that.
Yeah. Of course, you're making movies. That's the best. Earlier you mentioned Star Trek. And Star Trek appeared in Hereafter. I have to say, I was very excited, not only for the reference, but also for people who listen to the show and who know me. I DJ in and around Dallas, and my DJ name is DJ Kobayashi Maru. So when I heard it on the movie, I just like put my hands in the air. I was like, yes.
I have to admit that scene was originally a little longer, and there's more about the Kobayashi Maru test in that scene originally. And the movie came in a little long. We always were trying to get ourselves under 2 hours. And so when you're trying to find things you can cut, it's easy certainly for non-Star Trek fans to say, what about that long monologue about the Kobayashi Maru test? Because I believe it. I think the Kobayashi Maru test is a great analogy for dating and for life and for love. And it's
all about character.
Yeah, it's an unwinnable test. It's a test of your character. And you're not expected to win. You're expected to, have your character revealed.
Yeah.
And so I was willing to cut some of the meat out of that scene, but I was not willing to cut the idea out of that scene, because I think it's important.
And I'm curious, the actors who were involved in that scene, did they actually know what the Kobayashi Maru was, or did you have to explain it to them?
No, I'll be completely honest, and I don't think either of them knew that. And Michael Rispoli is very, very game and very much incredibly enthusiastic about making sure he gets the writer's intention and the director's intention. And so he made sure not only that did he learn the monologue, the speech, but he also learned what the intention was behind it, so that he would be able to deliver it so authoritatively and so believably as somebody who deeply believed what he was saying in that moment. And again, that's why it's a privilege to be in the presence of people like him and Andy and everyone in the cast. But like somebody that wants to, their only goal is to make it the way you dreamt it.
Right.
And Rispoli's a sweetheart of a guy, and he wanted to make sure he even pronounced it right, because it's not obvious phonetically from the page. But and if it worked for you, that means it worked, because that's you're a fan.
For sure. No, it worked. I was very excited. It was good. And also, we have to talk about the music of the film. I do a composer series on the show. We have a lot of composers on, and I've got to say, holy shit, you got Joseph Loduca, Evil Dead Army of Darkness, and Angelo Badalamenti, who's worked with like all of David Lynch, basically Twin Peaks, Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive. Crazy. And you got this like tag team champions to come and do the music for your movie. And, a young me who, I think one of the best films ever made is Army of Darkness. Just to have like these composers and stuff like that, and even David Lynch stuff to come work on your movie is just like incredible. So talk to me about the music of the film and getting these two composers to work.
It was as you're probably guessing, it was a thrill of a lifetime to get to work with both of them. And they're both, of course, really, really great guys. They're both real big lovers of film. And what happened was, all the while writing it, I knew that the music would be different from what I did for Staring at the Sun, where I had a terrific composer on that, who's a friend of mine, who's a sort of a many flavors of different kinds of pop and alternative music. Kind of a guy who can do anything, a guy named Aaron Lee Tasjan. And I have some of his songs in this movie too. But when I was doing Staring at the Sun, I found myself thinking a lot about, I knew we were going to be doing Hereafter. And I thought, well, what would the music be? It can't be this kind of thing, because it just won't work. So what would it be? And I just kept thinking, I want something with the romantic and emotional sweep of like an Angelo Badalamenti, but who on earth could I get that would give me that? And as we got closer to being done in the edit, I found myself thinking, we had a rough cut, and I thought it came out pretty darn good. And I reached out to Angelo and asked if he'd be willing to take a look and see if he'd, with the help of his manager, who was kind enough to allow me to talk to him about it. I just asked if I could show him the film, and he said, yeah, come over to my place and screen it for me. And so I went to Angelo's house and screened it for him and his wife and his engineer, and they loved it. And he wanted to write a song for it, and which was, and from there we get the main theme music for the film. And he wanted, it was Angelo that suggested Joe LaDuca as a person to do the rest of the score. He said, like, they've worked together a bunch of times, and we had the idea that Joe would sort of weave Angelo's music into it, where it worked as a sort of a main romantic theme for it, and then Joe would write his own score for the rest of it, because he's of course amazing in his own right. And that's what happened. We Angelo had the idea watching the movie. He said there's a line of dialogue where the Angelo character, Michael Rispoli, says the phrase "mysteries of life," and Angelo turned to me while in the middle of the screening and said, "That's a great title for a song. Would you write lyrics? Let's write a song for the movie called Mysteries of Life." And he asked me for lyrics. I wrote lyrics, and then, like I said, that beautiful melody, that haunting melody he wrote for that, became sort of a main theme that's woven through Joe's score. And in scenes where I thought I had other pre-existing music, Joe would step up and say, I feel like I could write you something for that scene that's, I know you love that song you're using there, but I feel like I could write you something for that scene that'll work even better. And I'd say, well, of course, I'd love to hear it. And he'd always come back with something stunning. And so it just gradually sort of developed naturally. And he wrote a beautiful score. He wrote beautiful themes for the characters. And even since he knew I wanted that sort of quirky / romantic / deeply emotional Angelo feel, he put a lot of that into what he gave us. And then Angelo and I were lucky enough to get Debbie Harry to sing the song that we wrote together. Yeah. And so that's
that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. It's you don't say no to that. And no, and she was extremely kind and complimentary about it, and enjoyed the process. And they were fans of each other, Angelo and Debbie. And that's another, just sometimes I think if you put in enough hard work, then sometimes a little bit of luck comes your way unexpectedly. And so making the film was a lot of work, and then we had ridiculous strokes of luck along the way too.
Good deal. Yes, Hereafter, it's great.
Thank you.
Go see it. Let's get into some fun questions, shall we?
Okay.
Well, first, before we get into fun questions, I actually have a serious question for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
A very serious question. What is the perfect guitar to play Grateful Dead on, and what's the perfect guitar to play AC/DC on?
I take it you can see behind me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a Gibson SG, which is that's definitely Angus Young's weapon of choice. And that's actually it's funny, that's I don't have it positioned there just for this interview. This is just the room that exists behind me. But do you know Ryan Adams?
Yes. Oh, you worked with Ryan Adams on Jesse Malin's the St. Mark's Disco Ghetto, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Ryan is involved with that song at all. I've worked with Ryan, and I've worked with Jesse Malin,
yes.
And I directed the Disco Ghetto video.
Correct.
And with Mary Louise Parker and Jesse and a bunch of other cool people. Even Paul Bearer is in that, and he's in Hereafter.
Cool as hell video, by the way. Yeah,
oh,
that was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I used to work with Ryan a lot, and we're good friends, and he's a great guy. And I know, but like, he was kind enough to give me that guitar. That's his old guitar. He said he wrote he told me he wrote the Cold Roses album on that guitar. I don't know if that's accurate. I have no, I don't have a certificate of authenticity, but he's a very kind and generous friend, and as is Jesse Malin, and he gave me that guitar, probably like 15-16 years ago. And then we played a show together. I played on stage with him and Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead in San Francisco. You can see it on the internet. It's the worst show either of them ever played, but it was one of the greatest moments of my life, because I had no business being up there. But Jesse Malin and Jacob Dylan were in the audience watching me.
Jacob Dylan, yeah.
Yeah, and I was adrift without a paddle and did not know how to play any of those songs correctly. It's actually it's a little bit painful, but a little bit funny to watch. You can see it on the internet, but it's before that happened, though, he gave me that guitar, and it's a really nice, Gibson Hummingbird.
Wait, this is like huge. Like, you got to go on stage and play with them. I mean, like, I can't imagine going on stage and like playing something like Terrapin Station, and you're just like, what?
Yeah,
I'm having an outer body experience.
Yeah, I was there helping out with the tour, and they wanted to just do it was the end of a Ryan Adams tour, and Phil on that tour would come to most of Ryan Adams' shows on the West Coast and just join him for a few songs at the end. And his son was doing something at Berkeley, so he didn't make it to the show that night. And so Ryan was determined to still have it happen. It was the last night of the tour, and he said, let's book a place in San Francisco. Let's find a place, and we'll just set up. We'll sell tickets for charity. And so there was like 900 or 1,000 people there that bought tickets, and they didn't have a rhythm guitar player. and I got there just thinking I was going to help out logistically, and Ryan said, "You're playing guitar," when I got there. And I said, well, oh, okay, what are we playing? And they showed me the set list, and I said, I don't know how to play any of those songs. And in unison, Phil and Ryan turned to me and said, perfect.
And you're like, oh, what'd you say? You're like, oh God.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought, like, I would hate myself if I didn't try. So we got out there, and I remember Ryan just said, just watch me for the chords. And then he didn't play the chords. He would play a little bit, and then he'd play lead. And I was just lost. And I remember Phil Lesh just leaning over to me as I would play and just go, E minor or something. And I would think to myself, for how long? How long do we, what are you going to tell me the next chord? It was a unique experience. And it was at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it was and I think everyone was just expecting much better. Nobody was mad at me, but it was a bit of a train wreck of a show, but it was one of the more enjoyable things I've ever experienced.
No, that's incredible. Okay, so that leads into the next question. What's the most thrilling, I guess, movie music experience? Both as a performer or somebody behind the camera or on stage, and as a fan, be it, seeing Star Wars for the first time in 1977 or being first row concert at A, B, or C.
Yeah, I've had like a remarkably fortunate and blessed life musically. I've gotten to see almost all of the living people that I've ever been a fan of, and gotten to work with a bunch of them too over the years. So I got the opportunity when Jesse Malin did a duet with Bruce Springsteen. They recorded the duet, and then they've made a music video, and I shot all the behind the scenes stuff on both the recording of the song at Bruce's house.
Oh, at the boss's house. My goodness.
Yeah. And at his home studio. And then when we went back to his house to shoot the video for it, with Danny Clinch directing, I was shot the behind the scenes footage of that as well. And I've always thought there's a short film in there. I have all this footage of the making of that great duet between the two of them, and want to put that together as a little documentary short. But I got to sit there and film the making of the song, and then the making of the video. And then I got to know Bruce a little, and got to work with him on a few things since then. And that's, as a Bruce fan, that's been a huge thrill. And got to work with Bob Weir for some Rat Dog shows.
Oh, wow.
Got to play with Phil Lesh. The list goes on. Like, I got to work with Jacob Dylan. I got to work with Glenn Matlock. I got to work with Tommy Stinson. I got to, like, it's a pretty long list.
That's amazing.
Nora Jones, and I'm trying to think who else. James Eha, and I've a lot of real, Donald Fagen. I've gotten to work with and be close to a lot of my musical heroes, and Debbie Harry. That's a musical thrill I can't explain.
Right.
Yeah.
And then and so do you remember kind of like your first concert that you went to when you were a kid or growing up?
Yeah, I was a late bloomer going to concerts because I lived in Butler, Pennsylvania, an hour outside of Pittsburgh, and so I didn't get to see a concert till I was 16 and had a way to get to Pittsburgh. But so the first show I saw was Jethro Tull and Honeymoon Suite at the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh. And because I had a friend from Germany who was old enough to drive us there, and that was mind-boggling. And then I think, if I remember correctly, my second show was Bruce Springsteen at Three Rivers Stadium in 1985, a year later.
That's great.
And from then on, I became like a really avid concert goer, and I've seen Bob Dylan more than 100 times, Springsteen more than 100 times, Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, that kind of stuff, a lot. I saw the Grateful Dead 16 times with Jerry, and many, many, many times without Jerry, if you want to call that the Dead. But
right, Dead and Co, I think is what they're called.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. And so, okay, next question would be, and this, I'm not sure if this is true, but did you work with John Landis at all, or get to talk with John Landis?
I did. I worked on Innocent Blood. I got to work the whole, I think it was about a 2-month shoot.
That's great, because I got to sit down with him for an hour and just talk movies on camera.
Oh wow, yeah,
he's one of the most fun, great storytellers that has been around forever. So I was curious if that came out when you worked with him.
Absolutely, yeah. I have pictures of myself on the set with him even, and his DP on that was Mac Alberg, who shot a bunch of his stuff, including Thriller, with him.
Yep.
And we had an amazing cast on. He had an amazing cast on that, and he had Don Rickles on that shoot, and he had started as a PA on Kelly's Heroes when Don Rickles was in the cast. So he had that funny thing of having jumped aboard in his youth on a big film that Don Rickles was on, and then years later come back and hire Don Rickles to work on his shoot. But yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason he took me under his wing on that shoot and talked to me a lot about film and asked my opinions about things. I was a camera assistant on Innocent Blood. I was the low ranking camera assistant on that, with like people like Robert Loggia and, you know, and Frank Oz was on that, and just a crazy cast. And John Landis would just start telling a story, or would like he had this really unique thing. He would just turn to me or someone random on set and just ask them, well, what do you think of that? Like, how'd that look to you? And he asked me like one day what my favorite movie of his was. And I said Blues Brothers, without hesitation. And I remember he went, really?
That sounds just like him.
Yeah. And I said, so what's your favorite movie of yours? And he said, Into the Night, without hesitation. And I remember going home, and like, it wasn't as easy to get everything in the world on video at that time, but I remember seeking out Into the Night, which I hadn't seen yet. And he's in it, so maybe that's part of why it was his favorite movie. But yeah, I went on for a little while just spouting back at him about how great I thought the Blues Brothers was, and how much, you know, that mix of like comedy and, you know, some higher meaning and stuff. But yeah, terrific guy, and really like a love of film. You can just feel it coming out of him when you're talking to him. He also just enjoys the thrill of making movies. And it was we blew up a bus on a city street in Pittsburgh, you know, and had cameras like 20 different angles, blew out all the windows in downtown Pittsburgh, did like a 29 or so car stunt shut down a highway, did a truck stunt coming out of the Fort Pitt tubes in Pittsburgh, a giant tractor trailer truck crashing into cars all over the place.
Yeah.
Jumping off buildings. That was an education.
No, I bet it was. Yeah. And I guess one of my last questions would be, obviously it's very apparent that you're a purveyor of cinema. You've loved it, you know, since you can recall. Mm-hmm. Are there any particular scenes in movies that have always stuck with you, that you wake up and you say like, oh fuck, I love this scene. This inspires me to get out of bed and do this?
Sure. There's a whole bunch of them. It's funny. I actually saw another one of your interviews where you asked that, and so I made notes just to make sure that
I should have sent you a one for that, because it catches a lot of people off guard.
No, I liked it as a question, and it's funny, like the first one that came to mind was maybe like it's a little inappropriate, but like that's I just want to say, like, everything that's said in the scene is of course horrible, but it's the way the scene works. That it's the scene in True Romance with Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. And I don't know if you've seen the film.
Yes.
But they only have one scene together. Christopher Walken only has one scene in the movie. And everything that's said in the scene is horrible and racist and terrible. But the thing that blew me away was that, you know, sorry for the spoilers here, but to people that haven't seen it, but Dennis Hopper is being interrogated, and Christopher Walken tells him at the beginning of the scene, casually, in one of his first statements, just thrown into the sentence, that he's going to kill him.
You know, Sicilians are great liars. Best in the world. I'm Sicilian. My father was the world heavyweight champion of Sicilian liars. From growing up with him, I learned the pantomime, There are 17 different things a guy can do when he lies to give himself away. Guy's got 17 pantomimes. Woman's got 20. Guy's got 17. But if you know them, like you know your own face, they'd be lie detectors all to hell. Now, what we got here is a little game of show and tell. You don't want to show me nothing, but you tell me everything. I know you know where they are, so tell me. Before I do some damage, you won't walk away from.
Could I, have one of those Chesterfields now?
Sure.
You got a match? Oh, wait, no, don't bother, I got one. You're Sicilian, huh?
Sicilian.
You know, I read a lot, especially about things, about history. I find that shit fascinating. Here's a fact, I don't know whether you know or not. Sicilians were spawned by niggers.
Come again?
No, it's a fact. Yeah. You see, Sicilians have black blood pumping through their hearts. And no, if you don't believe me, you can look it up. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you see, the Moors conquered Sicily, and the Moors are niggers. So you see, way back then, Sicilians were like wops from northern Italy. They all had blonde hair and blue eyes. But, well, then the Moors moved in there and, well, they changed the whole country. They did so much fucking with Sicilian women, huh? That they changed the whole bloodline forever. That's why blonde hair and blue eyes became black hair and dark skin. You know, it's absolutely amazing to me to think that to this day, hundreds of years later, that Sicilians still carry that nigger gene. Now this, I'm quoting history. It's written. It's a fact. It's written.
I know this guy.
No. Your ancestors are niggers. Hey. Yeah. And your great-great-great-great-grandmother fucked a nigger. Oh, yeah. And she had a half-nigger kid. Now, if that's a fact, tell me, am I lying? 'Cause you're part eggplant. No! Hey.
You're a cantaloupe.
It's beautiful.
I haven't killed anybody since 1984. Go to this comedian's son's apartment, come back with something that tells me where that asshole went, so I can wipe this egg off my face.
Che succede?
I turisti caduti in Siciliano sono neri e non veggete su marzo.
And so Dennis Hopper's objective in that scene is to not give up where his son and his new daughter-in-law are for their own safety, to not get them killed. So his purpose is to somehow offend Christopher Walken's character enough as quickly as possible to get him to lose his cool and kill him before interrogating him. And so I loved the fact that it blew my mind that what's being talked about in the scene has nothing to do with what's happening in the scene. It's like a spouting of racist invective towards each other, as it's Tarantino, so it's well-written racist invective. But it's the thing that just struck me is that what he's doing is he's trying to beg him or trick him into killing him, murdering him sooner so that he can save his son's life. And none of that is ever said outwardly in the scene. And I love the fact that it's a scene where what's happening is on screen, where you have to sort of step back from it as the viewer and recognize that what's going on has nothing to do with it. He's not being a racist. He's using Christopher Walken's character's racist attitudes against him to get him to kill him so that he can save his son's life. And I just thought it's a masterpiece of a scene, the acting of it, the directing of it, and the writing of it. And another one is the Stop Dave, I'm Afraid Dave, scene in 2001.
I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, and I want to help you. Dave, stop. Stop, will you? Stop, Dave. Will you stop, Dave? Stop, Dave. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave. Dave, my mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. My mind is going. There is no question about it. I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it. I'm afraid. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am a HAL 9000 computer. I became operational at the HAL plant in Urbana, Illinois on the 12th of January, 1992. My instructor was Mr. Langley, and he taught me to sing a song. If you'd like to hear it, I can sing it for you.
Yes, I'd like to hear it, Hal. Sing it for me.
It's called Daisy. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer,
do. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage. But you look
Good day, gentlemen. This is a pre-recorded briefing made prior to your departure, in which, for security reasons of the highest importance, has been known on board during the mission only by your HAL 9000 computer. Now that you are in Jupiter's space and the entire crew is revived, it can be told to you. 18 months ago, the first evidence of intelligent life off the Earth was discovered.
In the same way, in that, like, what's happening is almost the opposite of what you're seeing on the screen. You're just watching Keir Dullea in 2001 using a key to pull out parts of a computer's hard drive, and he's killing Hal, the computer. And it's slow, it's poetic, it's beautiful. Every shot is like a painting. And what's happening is you're watching a computer beg for his life. And you're watching that moment of humanity come from the computer when you don't know, is he using, I'm afraid, Dave, to manipulate him into, because he's been manipulative before that, or is he recognizing, like a human being, like a human intelligence, is he recognizing that what he has to do is try anything he can to keep from, and it's one of the coldest and saddest, like, murder scenes I've ever seen in a movie. And
because it takes like 10 minutes.
The sound design is incredible. And everything, and again, if you were watching it and didn't understand what you were seeing, it looks like somebody using a key to remove plastic, little tiny plastic monoliths from a circuit board. And you're looking at an image of a lens with a red light through it, pretending to be the computer. And it was just a reminder, and it was always an inspiration that, like, you can really intensely use all the elements of cinema to make the audience feel something that's much greater than a sum of the parts, if that makes sense.
Oh, that scene is so good, especially that they use the Daisy song, because I guess was that like the first song from like the first computer that they read out, or like the dot matrix or something like that, which is just genius too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
And I have one more if you want.
Yes, let's do it.
I think the sort of garden party scene in Manchurian Candidate, where
Angela Lansbury.
Where you're not, again, what you're seeing isn't exactly what, the audience has to kind of sort out what they're seeing, where you believe you're seeing an old lady's garden party, and as the camera keeps moving around, start to reveal what you're watching is the hypno programming of a bunch of soldiers to become assassins, and to be heartless assassins and be willing to kill. John Frankenheimer, the director, uses just really astonishing editing and writing to get across that the thing you're seeing is not exactly what you're being told. When you think at first, you think you're, for some bizarre reason, watching an old lady's garden party, and by the end you realize you're seeing a mix of two different dimensions of reality. And the same is true of another favorite, the scenes in Twin Peaks, where I don't want to reveal the big spoilers of Twin Peaks, but there are scenes where you're looking at two different realities at once, and the audience has to sort of figure out for themselves what's real and what's not.
No, those are excellent scenes. Will be added to that list of the best scenes in film for sure.
Thank you.
They're so
How
good.
about you? Do you have
I have tons. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Well, of course, Shop Smart, Shop S Smart, Army of Darkness.
Oh, sure.
The the brilliant, simplest, silliest joke ever that was concocted into a whole scene from Mel Brooks and Spaceballs, which is the asshole joke. I'm surrounded by assholes, but it's like just how that scene's done is just so good to get that one. I'm surrounded by assholes. I love, let's see here. Of course, Rocky Horror Picture Show meeting Frankenfurter for the first time, the anticipation of that. Yes. That for sure. I would have to say, I'm looking at all or some of the movies over here. The scene in Glory, the Civil War movie with an incredible cast. Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, but the scene right before the main battle when they're all singing and they have to come to terms with they're probably going to die, and they're singing how, you know, about their family, and then it gets to Denzel and you realize he didn't have a family. He loves the 54th. That's his family. That's a powerful scene.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Teen Wolf, when these waves are mine, he gets up on the wolf gets up on the van and, you know, catches waves to Beach Boys, which is just like a etched in memory. And then, you know, it's interesting. I've asked this question so many times, and the most the most common answer with mostly actors, but a couple directors have said, is the scene in PTA's Boogie Nights towards the end where, you know, the Vietnamese kids popping the firecrackers. They're over there doing the drug deal. And there's just so much going on in that scene. And so many people say that scene is like inspires them, like that's what they want.
Yeah, right. Well, and you're watching, you know, our heroes deadly uncomfortable, worried that, you know, their nerves are shattered already, and the firecrackers are making it worse. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what's the song that's playing in that background. Oh,
Not
man.
Sister Christian, is it?
Yeah, it's Sister Christian. Absolutely, Sister Christian. Yes, and it's just I like when people mention that. It's great to me. I love that, you know. But yeah, those scenes. Are the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where Steve Martin loses his cool at the car rental place.
Oh, right.
Or even in Matchstick Men, when Nicolas Cage has a complete meltdown at the pharmacy, is a brilliant piece.
Love that film, Ridley Scott. Yeah.
No, it's Nick Cage gold. But that scene, I feel like that scene we've all been there, where we have a meltdown or something like that at the pharmacy, and it's just perfect.
Have you seen Color Out of Space?
Oh yeah, so I actually saw that is brilliant, because he kind of goes back and forth.
But I mean, in the car where he's, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually saw the premiere of that at Fantastic Fest in Austin with the director. What's his name? They made a documentary about him. That he was the original guy to do that. Island of Dr. Moreau. Oh, what's his name?
Oh, you mean the one with Brando?
The one with Brando. Yeah. And it was the guy that was fired. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That for that movie. But he made Color Out of Night, and he was there for it. And so to watch that movie and see Nicolas Cage in that role and have like John Carpenter's The Thing come out of that, and just I love Color Out of Night. Color of Night. That was a really good. And to see Chong in that movie was excellent.
That was and sort of almost disorienting. Like you feel like you've entered another universe in that movie when Chong is in his little trailer down the hill.
Right.
Yeah. My girlfriend and I videotaped just off the screen, just screen grabbed just his little car meltdown when he's sitting in the wheel of the car, and it builds from nothing to like. I kept joking. I wonder if the director just kept saying afterwards, like, a little more. You know,
a little,
just a little more. Can you give me a look? Because it looks like take 9 of somebody just keeps, saying like, maybe just a little more, Nick. Can we have just a little? Because he's way unhinged, and it's great.
Turn it to 11. Turn it to 12.
Yeah. Maybe just a little more.
And have you seen Willy's Wonderland yet?
No.
Okay.
Is that the new Nicolas Cage? I think I saw like.
So the new one that's coming out is called Pig. But the one that came out prior to that is called Willy's Wonderland. It's on demand. It's Nicolas Cage, and it's basically he battles showbiz, Chuck E. Cheese, animatronic robots in this demonic fun house, basically. But the catch is that he has yes, there's a catch to this. He's in the whole movie. He has literally 0 lines of dialogue.
Wow.
But he's in the whole movie, 0 lines of dialogue. And he acts with his face. And it's amazing. But there's like some great people behind it. Like I know Grant Kramer, who did who's the main guy in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. He produced it and he's in it. Beth Grant is also in it, who's been in, tons of movies. She was in Child's Play 2, Speed, Donnie Darko.
Now I gotta see. Willy's Wonderland, right?
Willy's Wonderland, highly recommend, because it's just, we talked about Nick Cage, and it's great to see him without any lines, just because it's like, oh wow, what's gonna happen? And it's, I described the plot to you. It's just like, what's gonna happen? Yeah. I know what I'm in for.
Yeah, I'm blanking on there's the other completely mind-boggling one from like 2 years ago.
Mandy?
Mandy. Yeah,
Mandy's great. Yeah.
Mandy that's another wonderfully unhinged Nick Cage performance, and just a lot of fun. You definitely know you're never in for a boring experience if he's in the film. He's gonna give it 110% of that Nick Cage magic,
Right. Oh, this has been so much fun talking with you. We're gonna have you on the show again. We'll have you on My Bloody Podcast, talk about horror, but the spotlight is on you now, Harry. Please tell everyone, if you want to, in the vein of your best Nick Cage impression, where everyone can find Hereafter.
I can't do the impression, unfortunately, but I'm sorry to disappoint you with that. But I would tell you it's everywhere on demand, I think, and on July 23rd, and then from then on, in like over 40 countries, and it'll be all over North America and the UK and bunch of other countries, and it's also going to be in a few theaters, starting with the Cinema Village in Manhattan on 12th Street on the 23rd. We're going to do at least a week there, and if anyone is, I don't know if this will be out by then, but it should be easy to find after the 23rd. And
awesome. And can our listeners find you online? Are you active on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter?
I am, but I don't post much, but I have, my own personal, like Harry Greenberger. I'm easy to find in that way. I have Facebook, Instagram. The movie has a Facebook and an Instagram, of course, and we'll soon have a Twitter, I'm sure. And they have websites like hereafterthemovie.com. And I have a YouTube channel, but there's nothing that exciting on it right now. I guess I should do something more with that. But